Hey, White Sox fans. Once again, Brett Ballantini here. Um, a baritone? Is that what I am now? I don't know. My normally high voice has gotten lower through illness, post vacation. If you listen to yesterday's Record Time podcast, you know the backstory of why I sound like I do at the moment. But all you need to know, if you didn't listen, is that I'm here for you. Again, unlimited, absolutely boundless enthusiasm for the Chicago White Sox. But no, mostly, only for you, the listener, the reader, the White Sox fan, the follower. I bring my 45 years of fandom, pushing 50 years of fandom, half of that covering the team in some form or other, to try to make sense of or illuminate or shovel dirt on the season that is 2024 and is now already on September 1st, historic in that today the White Sox, with their potent two single effort on offense, losing, getting swept by the New York Mets, 107 losses, setting a single season franchise record. Again, on September 1st, it's remarkable. If the White Sox win out, my prediction for the season will be dead accurate. I did, need I remind you, before the season, peg the White Sox for a record-breaking season, 107 losses. Of course, it seems like they're going to come closer to losing out than winning out, so the real final total is going to be probably north of 120. Can you believe this? I've been a fan probably longer than most of you, and that doesn't give me any additional insight or garrulousness or cynicism or less. I just never would have thought this is possible. We knew what the realms of possibility were. What was the sunniest? A 500 season? That is a stretch, but okay. 80 wins. And the low being 50 wins? Not 40. Anyway, they lost today. As you well know, there's no way to not do a podcast commemorating this. It's a little ridiculous that I'm just talking solo to you. I know this is a lot of people do this. I don't think I normally do this. I'm not that enthralled by myself or my voice, even when it's several octaves higher. And I'm way more camera ready than being ill, vaguely suntanned or flaking sunburn. That's true. Italians can burn. I learned that the hard way. I got a really bad burn right here on my nose. 2006 Punch AJ game. Got so caught up in the action, just sat there in the sun field, which was the left field side, third base side, and just burned the hell out of myself. But you live, you learn. I guess maybe not, because I just let myself get a little burned off on a very brief sojourn away from the White Sox, during which they did not win a game. And that's where we'll lead off here, because as the game was winding up today, and as it became pretty clear, the Sox were going to lose, and the Sox were going to lose a 10th straight, which would make a third losing streak of 10 or more games in a season for a franchise that had never lost had a double figure losing streak, more than one double figure losing streak in any season. And frankly, hold on. Let's see how quickly I can maneuver here on ye old laptop. Losing streaks. So this is a glimpse into Sox Populi Central here. The White Sox have had, now that we have to count this one, 16 losing streaks of 10 or more games. And okay, so we're talking about not quite 10% of seasons, but it's there's not 50 of them. When I looked up when I used to had to look up every 10 game or longer losing streak in history. The total came to, I forget what I tweeted out. Forgive me. 102. That seems low, but that's what came up. So maybe it is only 102. It seems a stretch that the White Sox would own 15% of those losing streaks. And I guess a couple of these bridge seasons, the one from 67 to 68 does. At any rate, I might have got all that wrong. But one thing I did get right, and sue me, this is free research. I don't think anybody gave me a tip to do this weird research today as the game was ending. At any rate, I wrote them all down here for the benefit of the visual. There's my list. I wrote every year down where they were listed as 10-game losing streaks, and there were many seasons where there wasn't even a single one. There were 98 seasons roughly. Again, please don't peg me on this. I'm not even 100%, so pipe down. I believe 98 seasons out of 124, 23 MLB, American League, National League seasons. 98 didn't even have 3 10-game losing streaks total, and that's any team. Back in the day when there were 16 teams for most of baseball history, Major League Baseball, MLB history. And, of course, now more opportunities for it because there's how many teams now? 30, whatever it is. At least until the White Sox are relegated to the International League. So the majority of seasons have not even had the number of 10-game plus losing streaks that the White Sox have had this year. There are a pretty decent handful. Saw the Cubs in 2021. Let me count them up quick. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Let's say 14 roughly. 14 multiple, like what the White Sox had already done before today. 14 teams in history had multiple 10-game or longer losing streaks, which again, until this season for the White Sox, it wasn't heard of. So the White Sox were in relatively rare company going into today by having had 2 long streaks. And of course, we know one of them was it 21 games? Whatever. I blocked all this out. The 20-plus losing streak, I mean, that's, we can count those as 2 10-game losing streaks, right? Of course, most of these are 10, 11, 12. There aren't that many long ones in history. And one team has ever done what the White Sox did today, which is the 3 10-plus losing streaks. And that is, drum roll, the 1962 Mets, which right now the White Sox are still neck and neck with. I'd say neck and neck. I'm not sure if they're neck and neck. I believe their pace is 4 games ahead. I'll get to that. Let's look at Brett's Twitter feed to supply some other factoids for you. As long as you're listening, as long as you're stuck in traffic or enjoying a beautiful sunset and for some reason listening to a podcast about the White Sox from a guy who sounds way more like Froggy from Little Rascals than normal. They are 5 worse, actually, at this point. They're 5 games behind the pace of the 1962 Mets, meaning they're 5 games worse, meaning the White Sox are going to have to step up and play ball in order to catch, and in this case, catch means get off the hook, the Mets. I mean, what seemed like a stretch, that one seemed like a pretty long shot, has become over the last month, certainly in the aftermath of the 21 whatever game losing streak, it's become way more realistic. And at this point, I mean, we're almost at the point of magic numbers. We got so many numbers. 24 games left. This is getting scary. They're 7 worse. Again, 7 behind, ahead, however you want to look at it, depending on which side you're rooting for here, and how embarrassed you want to be as a White Sox fan, or how embarrassed you want the White Sox ownership to be, which we know that Teflon Jerry is not going to feel one way or the other, no matter what he says. 7 games worse than the 2003 Tigers' pace, which is the worst 162 game record in baseball history. The worst 162 game season era, which is expansion era, when the leagues no longer were 8 teams only, is the Mets. They had those 2 games they didn't play. The White Sox at this point have nearly clinched being the worst White Sox team in history. Right now, they are 16 and a half games behind the 1932 White Sox. Of course, it's already clinched that they have the 2024 team has the most losses, 107, of course. The one remaining race there where there's some mystery, I suppose. And again, I still need to confirm whether this is really a major league record or not. Modern major league, meaning the ALNL as major leagues, let's say 1901 forward. Whether this is just an American League record or all major league, I sense that it's all major leagues. But I mean, again, don't quote me and don't yell at me if I'm wrong. Well, what I've been tracking basically all year with Futility Watch at Southside Sox has been worst AL record of all time, which again started way, in the first half of the season as a long shot. The White Sox were like 12 behind, meaning 12 better than, double figure better than the pace of the 1916 Philadelphia A's, which is the worst American League team in history. The White Sox right now are 2 games worse than the 1916 A's. And if you listened yesterday, or if you didn't, I'll give you the factoid again. The A's get hot in September, or got hot in September. And they got hot in late September. I've been waiting for them to win the game as the White Sox keep losing, and for the White Sox finally to have the worst start. I know it's sort of silly to call them starts now. We're 138 games in, but that's the frame of reference I've been using all year, whether it's the first 12 games, 20 games, whatever. So we're at 138. The minute if the White Sox keep losing, the minute Philadelphia in history, and I should just go ahead and look this up, but I sort of want to keep the mystery. It's so spicy and exciting. To not know when they actually won their next game, because when that happens, if the White Sox keep losing, the White Sox will then will possess the worst start to a season. Again, sorry, that's weird language when we're talking about probably 140 games. Worst start to a season ever. And if they keep losing, obviously it's going to happen because Philadelphia went 6-13 in September. And September 1 and 2, they lost. So, I mean, they get hot late. Maybe they won their last 6. I don't know. I'm keeping the mystery. Let's take a break. I promise I'm not going to go 25 minutes talking to myself in this odd voice like I did yesterday. A lot of the facts are repeat anyhow. Sorry if I'm boring you. But you know what will make you perk up and get interested and excited again and fall in love with the world and pull up to the seashore or lakeshore to catch a beautiful sunset, to catch a golden sunrise or a beautiful sunset. It's some promotional messages from the Fans First Sports Network. I always say we're taking a break. I don't know that they always pop them in on our podcast. Maybe they don't. Maybe I sound like an idiot every time. Anyhow, 30 seconds, a minute and 45 seconds, 3 minutes. I don't know what it's going to be, but there are some messages coming. That'll perk you up because it'll be something that won't have to do with the White Sox. So please hang with me for, let's just call it a minute. And then we'll come back and talk about something else. I don't know. There's probably some number I can talk about. Anyhow, pause for a second and consider these promotional options presented to you by the FFSN, Fans First Sports Network, that so kindly hosts our podcast. Hey, White Sox fans, I'm stuck on my Twitter page. I can't see myself. For all I know, I'm out of frame at this point. Am I out of frame? I hope not. Let's get myself back on screen so that I can have some ground. Hey, there I am. Okay. We've gone through the new wrinkle. It seems like every loss of distinction, which they are getting to all be now. I'm looking something new up. 2 days ago, it was the worst wars in history by players, a batting war. And we unearthed that the 1977 Atlanta Braves are the only team that will be likely to end to retain their title of the worst batting WAR in history. They had a -10. The White Sox had improved, I think, going into today to like -7.8, but they had 2 hits. I got picked off, got caught stealing, and their 2 hits were singles. So it's not looking good. They got shut out. So I'm going to guess that WAR might climb closer to 8. I know that the maneuverings, the wild swings can only be so great. Although today their pace did adjust to now being a what the heck are they now? A 36 and 126 pace. It takes now like a few wins to actually knock it down. And of course, the White Sox have been stringing together a few wins. So maybe 4 losses from now, they get swept in Baltimore. Maybe they'll be down to a 34 win pace. I don't even know what it is anymore. All these numbers are confusing me. What am I doing this podcast for? So yeah, every loss or 2 or 3, there's new wrinkles. There's new things to look up because this is not history I want to be talking about. I'm a White Sox fan. This doesn't make me feel good to be. It's definitely not celebrating. There were people early on when I would do the little factoids on Twitter and say, "Oh, hey man, they like when they swept the Rays, like man, they just had a sweep." Don't tell me they have the worst start or what. Well, okay, great, you can feel good about that, but it's still history. It doesn't matter. The White Sox win out, they will still have the most losses from any team in White Sox history. I mean, it'll definitely be an upbeat end to the season. But I mean, history is the history. Facts are still the facts, right? And the fact that they are going to avoid some of these terrible milestones we've been tracking on Futility Watch at Southside Sox all year are becoming increasingly unlikely to sidestep because at this point we have 24 days left in the calendar, 24 games left on the schedule. Unlikely that the White Sox are going to be able to dodge all the bad history. And again, if you did listen yesterday, I won't definitely go through that again, but we did revisit the projection made, I believe, right in the aftermath of the 20, whatever, was it 80? I don't even know how long that losing streak was. It was pretty embarrassing. I'm trying to block all this stuff out. Perhaps I'll wake up in February and won't even remember I'm a White Sox fan. I could only wish the same for you. But in the aftermath of that, we projected, or I did a quick and dirty whatever projection for the rest of the season. And even probably being a little generous to the White Sox. I mean, not knowing yet that Grady Sizemore is going to take over and what the vibe change would do or the handsomeness change would do for the team. Picked them to finish, I think, 10 and what the heck is this? Oh, my notes. 10-33, which actually seemed sort of sunny. 10-33 would have had them falling short of everything they needed to fall. It needed to do to, miss some of these milestones. They actually were projected to hit them all. And they've actually played, well, they're still right on, and again, not to revisit it, I did project them to get swept by the Mets. So they are still exactly where I had them, even though the details, I'm not that good a soothsayer. In fact, I'm not a good soothsayer at all. Although I did say when many weren't, they were going to set a losses record this year. I was right. But yeah, looking ahead, 1-5 road trip coming up. Steal a game from Cleveland. They're in a dogfight now. They're not going to be coasting. There was a time you might have thought that they might have clinched by this point in September, or darn close, and they're not. They're in a fight with the Royals. Go figure. Wow, how did that rebuild? Apparently, Kansas City just offloaded all of their useless stuff to us at the White Sox, which sort of created a lightness that they could then, they shook off some of the dead weight and were able to achieve. Or maybe they're just lucky enough to draft Bobby Witt Jr. instead of Andrew Vaughn. Okay, here's what I wanted to wind up with. I'm sorry, we're already pushing 20 minutes. This is ridiculous. How in the world can I be talking to myself? I don't even understand myself. I hope you can understand me. Depends, I guess, on how much late night smoky radio. I compliment myself saying this is like some kind of smoky voice. And again, I probably just sound like Froggy from, I'm sure there's a more modern equivalent, but I'm sorry, I'm a little older than most of you probably. So I'm going to say Froggy from the Little Rascals. The one thing without musing too much, because obviously if someone ever joins me from the Sox Populi family, to discuss this team ever again. I mean, obviously, I struck out this weekend. I put out my messages, and people were like, I think I'm going to just miss it by that much. So, I mean, we probably will do some freestyle time to talk about this on future podcasts. So I won't belabor this too long as we're pushing past 20 minutes. But something that we probably all need to reckon with is how different is it going to be next year or in the near future? In the context of the White Sox becoming a losing franchise, which now they are, oh God, it's in the futility watch. I think they're like 12 worse than 500 at this point already. They didn't mess around. I mean, they took like one game where they like went back to 500 all time, and then they just plunged downward, right? So they didn't really mess around. Their losingness. So for the second time, as you know, as we can review, second time in franchise history of the 124 years of franchise history, the White Sox are a losing team again. They've lost more games than they've won all time. And just realistically, in projecting and making an attempt when I wrote the article on Southside Sox to project when the White Sox would, best case scenario, get back to sea level, get back to 500, and then presumably move back into the winning realm. It was 2031 because, I mean, just the momentum already. Look, they're 10, 20 games under 500 all time already. By the end of the season, they're definitely going to be at least 20 worse than 500. You figure next year is 60 win season. That's got to be, that could be very generous, right? Let's say 60. So that's another 40 games worse than 500 added to it. Then maybe you're getting close to what you're approaching 500. Maybe you win 70. So that's another 20 games under 500. So you're probably at least 100 games all time under 500 before you start to even turn it around. And that turning around could be like successive 500 seasons. It doesn't mean you don't just turn it on and win 100, right? We know that from this last contention window where the White Sox had one season of winning games in the 90s. Were they 25 over 500 that year? 91? 1991, right? 2021. It seems like 1991 because Tony La Russa was the manager. But it's a realistic thing to have to contemplate. What can we possibly hope for? Not just for the end of this season. This is a hopeless, bleak affair. But next year, of course, there's going to be some sunshine. There's going to be a breakout rookie. There's going to be an arm who impresses. Maybe some kind of trade, win, a surprise signing, Eric Fetty kind of signing, maybe. I mean, there's going to be something to feel good about. But is it going to be enough to add up to even the 60-win season? I mean, at this point, that's a stretch. As improbable as it sounds to be like, oh, of course, 60 wins is like the basement. Well, we found out this year it's not. Now, I don't know how many teams can possibly survive losing or we're winning 40, 50 games a year. The White Sox may push that. One thing that I thought was interesting in looking up those long losing streaks, not only did the Mets have 3 in 1962, which is their debut season, correct? The next year they had another 2. And in fact, they had every 10-game or longer losing streak, all of them. There were just 5 between 1962 and 63. The Mets had them all. I can see the White Sox doing that this year because I think this year the White Sox, yes, there's 2 this year, now 3. See, look, it's legit. I was doing this as the White Sox were losing, so now it's 3, and they have them all. It's totally conceivable that next year they have all of the 10-game losing streaks as well. Again, sort of a funny, sick, sad coincidence because the Mets were an expansion team. They had nothing. I mean, that was a clown car team. That's what made them amazing. 8 seasons later, when they won a World Series, right? There ain't no Tom Seavers walking through the door anytime soon. Yeah, there's a talent pipeline. Presumably, I mean, Noah Schultz is our number 1 pitching prospect and has never thrown 5 innings as a professional. It's great that he's awesome. I love it. I do not want to diss Noah Schultz, but there are still some things to see. Drew Thorpe having surgery for a bone chip spur, I think a spur in his elbow, expected to be ready for the start of next season, but not exactly what you want to see. Not exactly Kopekian in that he had 3 starts and then needed TGS, but Never great to have a handful of starts and then succumb to surgery. And the rest of the promising arms, most of them have been compromised. Davis Martin coming back fairly strong, but it's been hurt. Sean Burke down in Charlotte, pitching well, big K guy. So maybe he's even upticked his velocity from pre-surgery, but he's still in Charlotte. There are so many question marks, and the pitching is the stronger end of things. We can complain about the bullpen all we want. The pitching WAR for this team is, like, I would say, normal. It's carrying the team. It's keeping the team afloat. It's keeping the team from having a negative WAR overall. How frightening would that be? It's conceivable if the pitching hiccups and the offense continues this bad, the White Sox could end up this season negative WAR. And I would almost guarantee that's never happened in the majors. We'll have to look it up, I suppose. As it is, the White Sox are going to be only the second team ever. The other team, there was a Negro League team that played like 42 games. Sort of don't count it, from like more than 100 years ago. And a Federal League team, again, more than 100 years ago. Those are the other two teams. The third team was the Atlanta Braves from 77. And then there's the White Sox. I believe the only teams of -8 batting WAR or worse. It's sort of terrifying because you do have to look ahead. Brian Ramos, Zach DeLoach is up with the team now. Edgar Caro, you figure you're going to see in 2025. If not, if we had real roster expansion, he'd maybe be up for September. That guy is the one guy who looks totally legit. A guy to get excited about. Can pick it, can hit, has power, both sides of the plate. I mean, that's a win. Other than that, I mean, I don't know who we got. Wilfred Veras has had a good season. He's still in Birmingham. Colson Montgomery, let's just move on from that. Tim Elko, okay, but there's still a hole in that swing. I mean, I love that he's proven everybody wrong. He should never have made it AAA, right? Okay, we'll see. I mean, I imagine he can only be so dynamic. I don't think he's going to be Mark McGwire in the majors, but okay. Terrible example, but first guy I could think of. Not going to be Frank Thomas in the majors. Who else is it? Jacob Gonzalez? Man, he was going gangbusters, and then, okay, he's at AA, and he's flattened out. Riku Nishida? I mean, come on. It's not coming. It's not coming for 2025. And then you got to wonder, okay, is it coming for 2026, 2027? Draft isn't blown for next summer, but there's no blue chip that's going to fall to the White Sox at, 11? What are we, 11 next year? No Bobby Witts. Maybe an Andrew Vaughn, though. Maybe a Nick Madrigal. So, anyhow, look at that. It's 28 minutes. What am I doing? Apparently, I can just go an hour. All right. Anyhow, let's wrap this up. Sorry to take 28 minutes. You probably shut me off a long time ago. At any rate, I don't know when we're going to do this again next. I will probably, whenever I can pin some of my Sox Populi cohorts, when I can corner them or trick them into talking with me again on a podcast, we'll do it. Presumably, we'll be doing it, if not multiple times, at least once here in September. We'll certainly do our postseason look back on our predictions. I mean, I know I nailed one. I know I'm going to finish in second place for one, which is the win and loss prediction. Ryan beat me there, not by much. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else we're going to do. Maybe we'll do some minors wrap-ups. I know Ladies' Night's coming up again in about a little more than a week. We'll have some more visiting dugouts. I know Crystal was, I believe, enjoying the entire Mets series or most of the Mets series this weekend. So maybe didn't have a Baltimore podcast upcoming, but I think that's probably a podcast that's going to still finish strong for us. Sharing Sox. You never know when that pops up, but it'll pop up. So we got stuff coming your way. I guarantee you, and I promise you, this will be the last time I talk solo to you for a while. Unless there's other weird news. I don't know. If nobody wants to talk to me when the White Sox lose their 125th or something, I guess I'll just come to you and talk for a half hour. Hopefully with more sunshine in my voice and wilder gesticulations, because I'll finally be off of the IL. As it is, I'm trying to play through the injury that has landed me here, I'm still plugging away, writing for you in 2 different spots. I appreciate your readership, your listenership, and even your viewership. Although, again, it was not recommended that you watch this, but if you did, hey, you're at the end, so thanks. I can't imagine how static and boring this is, but I don't know if you can count the rings on my mirror back there or whatever it is you're doing. Anyhow, thank you for all of that. Your support means a lot. It's been a very, very hard season, and I don't know that there's a lot of brightness ahead, both behind the scenes on the business end of things with Southside Sox or Sox Populi, frankly, and certainly with the team. So it's been a real struggle. I appreciate those of you who've been coming in and out with us or sticking with us all along. It does mean a lot, and perhaps we do not cite you out there listening right now, right there with your ears right now, or with your eyes reading. Cite you enough for the support you give us and the participation you do throw out on our sites for our writing and our ideas. It is very much appreciated, and I don't ever want you out there to think that we are not extremely appreciative of the attention you give us. But you've given me far too much attention, especially for a person who is speaking subsonically. I will do my best to tee it up and nurse the voice back to health. So the next time you have to listen to me at whatever weird alarm bell ringing, terrible milestone the White Sox hit. It's funny. I was just sitting right here, and so I was like, "Hey, check it out! I've got my White Sox DVD set." I'm not gonna watch. It's too painful. It's gonna sting my eyes if I watch it right now. But I'm sure. Oh, I don't know. Over the off season, I'll have to indulge in some of these games, or at least read all the factoids on the box, because it feels very, 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 very far away. A hell of a way to launch into the 20th anniversary season next year, White Sox. Man, you guys have nailed it. I sure do hope you get your $8 billion stadium that you've carved a little infield into already. The unmitigated, it's a word that keeps coming up, gall of White Sox ownership and executives. It's like you say it knows no bounds, and it really does know no bounds. Good luck with that, guys. Man, hope it rocks for you. Hope nobody falls too passy to that. At any rate, wow, I've covered way too much stuff with myself, but thank you for listening. I couldn't hear you if you're answering, like, shut up, stop, your voice is really giving out now, Brett. At any rate, thank you for listening. We will be back with more podcasts very shortly.